Welcome back to day 2 of summer camp. So as we heard this morning from Chaplain Ben, we're talking a little bit about the sass that Joseph has, the ability that he has to make it through a tough time. What do y'all think about this part of the story? Joseph went in and he lived with the head of the guards for the king, for the pharaoh, and all of a sudden his master's wife frames him and pretends that he was trying to seduce her when she was trying to seduce him and make him into a relationship he doesn't want to. And now he's in jail for like over 2 years. What are y'all's
It's a long time to be in prison for something you didn't do.
Yeah, it's Joseph just can't catch a break in this story. First, his brothers sell him into slavery, and then he's framed by the person he's sold to, or the person's wife that he's sold to. But I really love the concept of sass as being resilience, which is something that Joseph very clearly shows. He doesn't give up. All of this injustice that happens to him, and he takes it in stride, and he keeps being, the best revenge is success, and he keeps getting little glimmers. He gets in with the head jailer who puts him in charge of, all the other prisoners, and then he proves himself as a interpreter of dreams, which later serves him very well when the pharaoh makes him in charge of managing food for the entire land.
Wow.
Yeah, Joseph definitely comes across so many different snags, but I think it's like really amazing that even though all of these different things are happening, it talks in the Bible over and over again how God is still with him and that God is still watching over him. And I think that's a pretty beautiful thing that Joseph must have really been feeling in those moments and in that jail cell.
Well, and I just realized something, guys. I'm in the wrong country. I'm right here in Canaan, but I'm pretty sure Joseph got sold into slavery in Egypt. So it's going to get a little hotter. I'm sorry, but here we are.
Ooh, it's toasty warm.
This is historically incorrect.
I love the ripples in the sand dunes.
So Joseph's having to stay in jail. And yet it also sounded like that Joseph, like the jailer, liked Joseph.
I don't think that's really a question. The jailer definitely liked Joseph. I think that one of the things that we talked about before was Joseph didn't really do anything to deserve the way that he was treated, and it sounds like he's just making the best of a bad situation, where he tends to befriend the people who are his captors, and then rises to be someone who's extremely powerful in a society where he should be at the very bottom. Someone who owns land in this time, generally just nobles and kings. That's insane that he would be managing other people's land as a slave to a pharaoh. That's just a really wild situation.
Yeah. I think this situation is also a lot like what we're all kind of dealing with right now, and it's a waiting game, because it kind of feels like we're all in jail. We've all been grounded, so to speak. We can't really go anywhere or do anything or see our friends, and there's no camp. And it's really important that we maintain those social distance things so that our friends and family can be safe. But it's also really frustrating, kind of how being stuck in jail for 2 years for something you didn't do would be really frustrating. But it's important to note that Joseph I'm sure Joseph definitely had a few mental breakdowns or panic attacks. I'm not denying that fact. I think we've all been there, but it's important that throughout it seems that Joseph maintained a pretty positive, I'm going to get out of here eventually, this is not forever sort of attitude, which is really important to kind of bring a little perspective to the whole being stuck somewhere you don't want to be for an undetermined amount of time.
Well, I think the thing we haven't talked a whole lot about is like, God said that he was with Joseph. And I think that's an important thing to remember is like, if you are feeling alone or scared, just know that you're not. And I think that's extremely relevant right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Have any of you had any times in your life that you feel like you've had that sass, that resilience, that tenacity to make it through?
I think this was definitely a understated sass that I experienced, but when I was in high school, I had really severe social anxiety. I loved my friends and I loved learning at school, but I was just deathly afraid of actually going to school. And it was long and slow process where I just kept getting up and doing it and doing what I could, and eventually it got better. It took years, 3 years at least, but I knew there was something that kept me going, and eventually it paid off, and I graduated from high school and I'm in college.
Yay.
I think it's really important to note that, like, yes, Joseph has all these like miraculous positions, but unless I'm missing something, he's still a slave. It's actually quite
A
I'm a history
jailed
major.
slave.
Yeah, and like it's quite common for slaves to be put in positions of power because no one thought that they would take advantage of it. So he's, we're seeing Sass here, and it's really just him like making the best of a horrible position, but I don't think we can understate at all, like, he's still in bondage. He is owned by another human being. Just because he's Grand Vizier, he essentially controls Egypt, doesn't mean he's not property in his own right.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Oh, go ahead, Kelsey. Go ahead, Kelsey. Kelsey, go ahead.
I think she just said that was a good point that
Oh, I didn't hear that, my bad.
Sorry,
like
my internet is
camp,
a little shaky.
it feels like camp is just, like life in general is just Zoom and video conferencing all the time. Like I live in this box. Do any of you have any thoughts on how to keep this resilience through this time where we haven't been able to even go to school since spring break, and we aren't fully positive when we'll get to go to school again? How do we keep resilience when we're just stuck at home?
So, I mean, like, I read something which I completely agree with, and it was saying like nature is the greatest healer. Like God created nature before He created man. That was the first creation. So I think that like going out and healing and being around the other creations, I think is really important and very helpful. So like, yeah, go outside. Like, it's actually really safe to be outside. It's very safe to go on hikes, especially if you're going with someone who you live with, who you're already exposed to. That's going to be something I think is really helpful, especially at a time where it's hard to be around people.
Mm-hmm.
I also think it's important to remember that we can hear a lot of things about maintaining hope and looking for light and seeing things that are good, but also recognizing that this is really hard, and it's really hard for a lot of people, and we can recognize that too. It could be hard for us, and we can also have hope. We don't have to negate our feelings about what we're dealing with.
For sure.
Yeah.
I think another good thing is doing stuff for other people too. I have a friend of mine who doesn't have a car, and she lives in the middle of a food desert pretty much because she lives in a city. So you have like those little corner stores you can go to, but there's no big grocery store, which I think in, Phoenix is kind of hard to imagine if you don't live right in the middle of central Phoenix because everything's so spread out and everybody has a car. But I will, when I go on my weekly grocery store trip, I will make sure I text her beforehand and ask if she needs anything. And then if she does, I'll pick it up for her and I'll leave it on her doorstep. And as much as I want to like go in and say hi and give her a hug, I know that that's not something we can do right now, but just knowing that I am still kind of giving her that hug in a way because I'm leaving those things that she needs on her doorstep is really helpful for both of us because it makes me feel good and warm and fuzzy because I've had that moment of being selfless, so to speak, in my day. But it also makes her feel good because it makes her feel like she's being taken care of and is being seen. So.
Wow, Kelsey. Like, I feel like you also have a lot of style there. Wow. Yeah, no, I mean, I think we can make it through it, but it's gonna take some sass from us. So
I think we got it.
yeah. I think I may go and play with the sand behind me. I keep staring at it and I kind of want to play with it, pretend I'm on a beach. And so I look forward to seeing all of you tomorrow. And who knows what Ben will bring us then. Goodbye.
Bye.